more stuff, the usual Jean Thierry work. So this is, so there are many branches. So this one is, let's see, localizations, project references, updated, minor changes, some testing column, I can't remember. Oh, this is the branch to remove the manifest file and use some attributes, assembly attributes to use. So going on, minor changes, will soon merge it because now it's just doing little changes on that. So it seems to be very stable. I think there's an issue with the CI build though on Travis. I will check that. This is the dev branch. Antoine fixed the styling for the error messages, so now they are displayed in the admin. Same thing from Jean Thierry. This is merging an update of Gint to make it faster. Suggest username on first logging after setup, so moving the inputs of the email and the username around so that Google Chrome will remember the username. This one add AddModulerFolderRoute convention for Razor pages. So now you can customize the prefix for the Razor pages in a module. PR fixes a circular dependency and manifest cleanup, so fixing things, cleanup. You see the dependencies and removing attributes which are not used, things like this. Shared view components across modules. So now when you have a view component in a module, it can be used from another module. Update OrchardCore.Media to consume latest version of ImageSharp.Web. So there was this user, Jonathan, who found an issue with the resizing of the, well, with the parameter, how parameters are passed for the media resize, automatic resize, and he submitted a pull request in the ImageSharp.Web project, and so they released a new version on their MyGet feed. So his changes was to point to the MyGet feed and to use the CI version, but what we changed instead is that he's pointing to the CI version, but our own feed now points to the 6 labels feed. This way we don't have to reference them directly, we are a proxy on their feed. And this is only on the dev branch, so yeah, let me see. I think I said I will do that and I didn't, so I will do it right now, which is that when we do that, we are referencing a MyGet feed on the dev branch. We need to create an issue assigned to Beladu that remove reference to ImageSharp. Don't forget that we are referencing a MyGet feed. Otherwise, if we merge that in master, you will not be able to resolve the package because it will just reference NuGet. Submit new issue. This is done. Jean Thierry remove testing code, alternates and run wiki. So he's also working on. So this is a PR that goes beyond what it was supposed to do, but that's how things work. We discover things as we are fixing things. So here, this branch is about providing a way to change the layout from a liquid template. From a Razor page, you can already access the layout property and change it to what you want. Now it's even easier with that, but at least there is a new feature to do it from liquid templates. And he was also adding some tags that I asked him to remove because they were not used. And also after some discussions, we are changing some of the tags. For instance, this one was an interesting one. Instead of doing, for instance, display model, so pipe a shape to filters that will change the shape. And so, for instance, this call will take the shape model, remove the alternates, and change the shape type to menu item link. So instead of using filters like this, which meant that we needed a tag that will do nothing on a shape sometimes, a verb that does nothing, so the no render. So instead of doing that, the refactoring is down now that because it's a mutating action, it's a verb like clear alternates model. And then, oh, we still have that. I think we should also change that, but maybe that in a later change. So now same thing, to change the type of a shape, we'll do shape type, model, and the name of the new type. So there are no more piped like this, they are just actions to do, like when you assign a variable. You see down there are tags, and maybe we are missing one. They are tags, so it's going on. It's waiting for my review. Yep. So this one has been merged, we'll see later. This one is going on from Zipke to move the IdGeneration services to an existing module, well, an existing package and not the content module, so that we can reuse IdGeneration without having to reference the content management. This same thing from Jean-Thierry. This one, this is a new liquid tag antiforgery token to generate an antiforgery token in the form. And there is documentation, beautiful. The idea is that if you create a form from a liquid template, now and if this form needs an antiforgery token, you can generate one. Super easy, but very useful. This is a change from Jean-Thierry up here to fix the background tasks. Branching dev, so his branch, same thing, the liquid branch. Then go back on dev request object in liquid view. So this is again for liquid templates, away, and there is documentation. So there is now a new request object available in liquid templates, where you can access everything from the templates, or everything from the request in the templates. Example, query string, and this is what you get. Okay. And the question was asked on Gitter to get, for instance, the current path of the request. So you can do request.path, and the question was about how do I check if it's the home page, but then you will do request.path equals / okay. And now you even have access to headers, to query parameters, form parameters, cookies, and they are arrays. This one is not an array, but this one, for instance, is an array. You will see it when you use it. So that's very useful. That, and it's only available if it's running in a current HTTP context, okay, HTTP request. So if there is no HTTP request, like a background task, it won't be available, which makes sense. Liquid branch manifest, update on the manifest, and then Jean Jordan, who fixed a typo and updated some output blocks with text. I don't really know what it does, how it looks like, but yeah. Let's see. Liquid readme.txt. Already available because it's on dev. This is not what I wanted to do. And I'm going on a dev branch and opening the liquid thing, and it looks like this. Is that a change? It looks like, yeah, I don't know what it was before. It looks good. Text. Interesting. Or maybe it was just using like this and now it's, I don't know. Questions? Demos, Zipke. You're the only
Yeah, no demos.
What?
No progress, no nothing.
So sad. Okay, so I have a topic then. The topic I opened this morning on Gitter. Sipke, did you see my mentions?
No, I haven't.
That's okay. So there was someone who asked about dynamic forms, if there is a plan to implement dynamic forms. And I said, yes, they're on the roadmap, right? Sipke, you know about dynamic forms, I'm sure.
I know a few things.
More than anyone, actually. And I suggested something, actually. What would you do to do dynamic forms today in OrchardCore without dynamic forms? Aha.
So yeah, it's a good topic because I've been thinking about that on and off. But I'm curious to hear your ideas. Obviously, we don't have a layouts module, and I don't think we should add layouts. We have the the flow part thingy, which is really nice. I have seen other form builders that take a completely different approach, where you declare the input fields and stuff like that. It's more of a it's more of a data entry kind of thing, where you declare the form, but you don't design the form per se.
Okay.
So
I have a solution.
What's
I have a suggestion. So what is the goal of the dynamic forms module? What are the goals?
Yeah, one goal is to allow a admin user to design or configure a form that is presented on the front end, so that the website can collect data. That's the
design and then collect data.
Yep. And of course, hook it up to workflows.
Or do things, yes. Or do things with that, but mostly collect data. That's why. So, as you said, we used to use layout to create the dynamic forms, and now layout is now flow. But why not use flow for dynamic forms? So the idea will be that flow is just letting you organize widgets in a flow on the left, on the right, with columns. Is that you place the things you want. So why not have a set of widgets that are just form elements, after all?
Yeah, but does it also have some sort of notion of containers? Because you would want something like, an element that renders as a form tag.
Yep. And then, and I mentioned that also in Gitter. And we already have the notion of flow element, which is a container. Okay, we already have that because a flow can contain flows. Even our column thing, a container, is just a container of other widgets. So it's a widget that contains widgets. So we have this notion. So we could have a form being a widget element that contains other form elements, which themselves can be groups or columns and everything. So it's doable. It's just creating the widgets, and they can be created dynamically. They don't have to be code also. They just expose HTML. That's it, and containers. So that's very easy to do actually. We already have we have examples to do that. So we could have that, and then what we need, as you mentioned, that when I asked what we were using dynamic forms with, we can use workflows. I mean, you already have that in Orchard 1, but you showed that 2 weeks ago. You can have any endpoint with a workflow triggered, any workflow triggered by an endpoint. Okay.
It could be triggered by an endpoint. It could, and of course, within the context of Orchard, it could be triggered in response to any event, including if there's some sort of form submitted event, for example.
Yeah, but we don't even need that. We just need to inform the form that when it's submitted,
just provide the action to that endpoint.
Yeah. So when you create a workflow definition, or many of them, you just get the SAS token URL encoded available URL, and then you put it in the form that you created, so that you just say, hey, when the form is submitted, trigger this workflow, and then the workflow itself has all the current activities to extract form elements, and then do whatever it wants with that: validation, creating content items, sending emails, all of them at the same time, and that's it. I mean, there isn't much to do.
Yeah.
So also what?
Yeah, and in that regard, you don't even need a form builder. You could just paste in some HTML
Exactly.
that represents a form.
So that's
that
why
would work as well.
Yeah, that's why I say on Gitter, we don't even need these elements right now. We can just use a liquid template to create a form. And most of the users will be more than happy to be able to do that. Like, just let me enter the form I want with the JavaScript I want, with the design and the classes I want, because that's super straightforward. There is no barrier or to put into the user. So they can do that already with a widget or with a liquid page. And then point to the correct workflow, which is already existing. We just need to merge the branch, and then done. The only thing that I could see that is like we might want custom activities for validation, maybe.
Validation, and also there's a value, I think, to have the ability to collect the form submissions in a, to have some sort of page instead of having to write a custom module for that as well. Maybe because that's what we have in dynamic forms in Orchard 1. So you have the option to store the submission in the form of a record.
Probably create some activities that do that already. But just leverage the workflow. If it's fast, if it's powerful, so that we should do that instead of creating maybe a module could provide all of these, but we don't need to re-implement the UI and the back end for handling that. We can just use the workflow. And that will work already, and that will be super powerful. It doesn't have to be super fancy and with great UIs and drag and drop things. We can have flow that helps that, but most of the users, they just want not to be blocked by anything, to be able to apply their knowledge and in the CMS instead of having to bend what they want to do to what the CMS lets them do. The two things, like being able to do things simply by UI if we can, using the flow, and if we want to do complex things and not being blocked, then, let me write the HTML I want. And it will take me 5 minutes to write the form in a widget or in a page, and done.
Exactly. And even cool, since this is a stateful or a long-running workflow, you could implement wizards ultimately.
Yeah, ultimately, eventually, and also because widgets are content items, they will be localized, so you'll be able to have localized forms. That would be cool. So that's what I said on Gitter. Maybe try to use what we have right now by creating a form. So right now we don't have the form elements in the widgets, but we could. It should be very easy to do. Then with containers and everything. So try to use a custom form, and then try to use the workflow activities we already have to trigger a workflow. So that will be good. We might have to think also in terms of security, how that, but like be able to ensure that the workflow activity checks for an antiforgery token. So it might be a requirement, like by default, when we hook up on the post.
Well, it requires a SAS token.
These are two things. These are two things, because the SAS token is nice to prevent anyone from submitting, because you know to whom you have shared the URL with. But then if you create a form on a public site, the URL will be public, okay? So anyone can submit that. And then you might want to ensure that there is an anti-forgery token, so that you can't cross-site inject anything or cross-site submit anything. So that's the first level. And then just to ensure that we have all the security in place. Or maybe submission limits or things like this. We could, but that's independent from the forms itself. It's just, it also applies to any workflow. Prevent anyone from doing more than n requests per. So it could be just an activity that says,
So these are all really, more or less, not specifically HTTP maybe, but do you think it should be part of the workflows module itself? Within the workflows module, there is a HTTP folder which more and more it looks is becoming its own little module. It even has its own.
That's fine. It's a feature. That's okay. If it's a feature, that's okay. We maintain it. That doesn't have to be a different module. It's a feature at least, and that makes sense in the workflow. So I think it's good. So I mentioned that you will be interested into working on that, because that's your two big babies now. Dynamic forms was your previous one. Workflow is a new one. So that will be interesting to do that. and
It's
super
very
useful.
interesting. I'm wondering about the name though. Dynamic forms. We chose that name because there's already forms and custom forms and forms API. Because maybe we can just use the name forms or have a.
Oh, there you go. I'm not even sure you need a new module. You can have a feature in the widgets. Do we have a widget? Yeah, we have a widgets module. It can be part of the widget or a different module, but yeah, I don't mind.
Oh, okay. So you're suggesting could be a feature within regarding those form elements, which they could be part of the widget as a feature.
Yeah, a feature called forms elements and done. And you can use that, and you don't have to trigger workflows if you want. It just lets you create forms. Mm-hmm. And then there is an element which is a submit button or a form thing that contains an action, and the action can go to a workflow, and fine.
Exactly. It's up to the user to provide the action URL, and we should probably provide some sort of liquid help or something, a liquid tag that enables you to generate a workflow. Well, what about the so you want to use to just paste in the URL, including the SAS token that you will generate from a workflow? Yeah,
you generate it and you paste it. Maybe there will be a tag to do it automatically. The action that we do from the UI to generate. Yeah, that might be interesting. You're right. But we have to see. Yeah, on usage we'll see what's blocking and what can be.
Yeah.
That's small. But yeah, the idea is that people know HTML. So let's not block them from doing HTML if they want, and make things quickly and surely that they will progress and do the website very efficiently. That's the goal. Yeah.
Cool.
Good. That's it. That was the topic based on the question on the forum.
Do we have an issue for this already?
No. Not. You can file one, and with what we did, with what we said. Here with all the ideas. You look like excited to work on that.
I am.
Good.
Actually, I just want to get started right now.
Okay, let's see a demo next week then. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then you will also learn how to make widgets for the Flow engine. I don't know how much you have played with that. And
yeah, exactly. This is a great opportunity to get.
First thing to do is look at the recipe from the blog engine, which has the blog recipe, which has some example of widgets that can be reused in the Flow part and the Flow page.
Right. Okay.
Which is called a page now only, I think. Okay. Good. Questions about it? Let's see. Sotiris. So now I see Soterios. I always thought it was Sotiris. I don't know why. Soterios. Okay. Register contact form newsletter all with the workflow module. Yeah, think about these things. Can we do a register action? Can we do a contact form? Can we do a newsletter submission, a registration, all with custom work forms, even from.
Yeah, exactly. Registration forms, login forms.
And with the workflow.
Yeah, precis.
These are why you want forms. If you handle that, you manage everything. Register, yeah, maybe that's an advanced thing, but at least contact form and newsletter.
We have it in Orchard 1. The users module exposes create user registration activities and things like that.
And also content draft, like being able to create a draft content item or something that, store some state that we will be able to use to create content from that. That would be great.
Yep.
I'm sure we can. Live forms. What is live forms?
You saw live forms along. It's kind of like. I think it was not. It's not from. It allows you to design the form on one side and then see it completely rendered on the other side. I think that's.
I see live editing of forms. That's what we talked about also with the Flow module, to be able to drag and drop pieces of a form and organize it, and it's reactive UI. So that will be handled.
The vast majority of everything that I do is with the layout module.
Yeah, we talked about it. So now it will be the flow module, and that will be supported. That's why also Sipke got excited, because that's something we already have. We just need to create form elements, form widgets, and then So you should come next week to see what Sipke has done.
Yes.
That's the goal. But at the same time, being able to write the form in HTML if you want to write it, because you're a developer, and so you don't want to design a form, you want to write the content of the form, because sometimes that's what you want.
Realistically, what we do most of the time is I'll have an element that the users or the guys who are implementing our website for different clients, they will put an element on there that might be a data list, and then one of the things, it will have a configuration XML that talks to a database or talks to stored procedures, and then it will render. So largely in the design view, it'll just simply say data list, a design placeholder.
I see.
But when it renders and actually goes and queries all the data.
No, that makes sense. Typically a widget element that we can, totally doable. We just create a custom, or you will just create a custom form element that will go in a database to pick some data and make it a widget, and then it's available to the form designer. Totally doable. That, if you want to be able to reuse it and configure it to make a widget, and otherwise, we can also create a liquid page that will have some logic to render things and maybe do some requests to get some data, and so that's totally doable. Yep. Think about it, Sipke, making custom form elements that grab some data from somewhere else with custom configuration. After all, it's just a widget, so we can do everything in a widget.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's anything to do other than, well, if it's something custom that fetches data from some database or some API, it just needs to, we need to make sure that we support that scenario.
Just as a sample, something that,
Actually, largely what I did was, when I first started with Orchard, was to become completely immersed in how the layout module works, and then I created essentially a generic element that I keep reusing. That's okay, I need an element that does this, and a lot of it, whether it's a graph element or a vector control or a gauge, I would say out of the 20 elements that I have, only 2 of them are, out of the 20 controls I have, 2 of them are modules, the rest are elements.
Yeah, in OrchardCore there is only one concept, which is a widget. So this simplifies also everything, and it can be done dynamically. So you don't need to code anything also. Is two-way binding a point to consider as well? Two-way binding. I don't really, maybe you haven't seen the workflow module series, but I would say I'm sure you have seen it, the new workflow module. Same as in Orchard 1, you can, so when a form is submitted, you already, so you have the notion of webhook, and then when you submit the request to the workflow definition, then you can access anything from the workflow request, from the HTTP request. So then you get the data from the form. We also have talked about having custom webhooks, so you already have the values parsed by an activity and available as variables, because it knows that this is a request coming from GitHub, so I can extract these values. And then, but
I think that Sotiris might mean that once you submitted data, then would it also be possible to display that submitted data? So basically pre-populate a form with existing data. This is, I'm not sure if it's fully implemented in Orchard 1, but it does have the beginnings of that, and it does support it. But that's enabled by the fact that it has a notion of form submissions, which Orchard 1 or Dynamic Forms module knows about, which we won't have in OrchardCore at this point. But if there's a custom module, for example, that enables forms to be stored in some data store, then of course you could also build what Sotiris is asking about. But that will be out of scope for this initial.
So we can
release, I think.
We can initialize a form already by having the widgets being configurable. We could also have events with the workflow, like when an item is created, the editor is created for, or when a content item with the form is displayed, then define some default state, and then being able to edit an existing thing. Yeah.
Well, exactly. It depends on what that thing is, and that could be very arbitrary or very specific to a given scenario.
Yeah, maybe out of scope.
Unless we provide a general purpose notion of form submissions, but
yeah, might be too complex right now for what we want to do.
For now,
it's more just this is more than just form submission. This is content management on the front end. This is different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, for now the focus would be just the very straightforward
form submission
or functionality. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. So another topic, Orchard 2, and I have website page, which is a new one. So Pete Davis created a new site. I can't find the one from. I think it was Bethany, guys, the I Am Pregnant site. I can't find it anymore. I wanted to add it in a list. But Pete Davis made a new site, which he published on this domain. And it's using OrchardCore. And they have also, let's see, I found something here. Us, you see they have good content management because yeah, people with faces. We have kind of the same thing on the agency theme. And if you look at the source, which is the first thing I do all the time, I will inspect this element instead. We can see that that is using media/theme Alex. So he's using the media management screen to create the pictures of the theme. And we can see also width height 450, so it's using the dynamic resizing of the images. And I assume that each thing here is a content item in the CMS, and it just has a template that iterates over all the content items and just display them like this using liquid or something. I don't know, but it works. And when you click, there's nothing on the click. But that looks good, and we should be able to see that it has the Orchard tag rendered. Can't find it, maybe it's not Orchard. But yes, it's /theme/ whatever. So it must be there somewhere. Even suggested we change the name. Yes, here, Orchard MetaGeneration wanted us to change to OrchardCore. I'm not sure we should keep Orchard. That I don't know. I'm sure I changed my mind already on that, but that's fine. Today, that's what we have. So yeah, good content management, and it works. Sure, they're happy with that. I'd like to know more about how they made the website. One day, maybe when he joins, we can ask questions. I suggested him to join us too, so we can know more about these sites, how they did that, what techniques they used, what was limiting.